and caffeine. Like they
What's
love
a promising storyline?
reptilians and vampires. They feed off of him because he drinks crap loads of coffee, and they love the caffeine in his blood.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's an actual song.
It's an actual song?
Yes.
What, that you wrote?
One of you feel
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. I got
Well, me and Mark Watoshik did it.
What was that?
Me and Mark Watoshik did it together as a joint effort. It's I can find the name of the song again. I've actually got it. I literally just did finish up on the final edit for it today. It's Caffeine Blood Swamp Edition. It's called Caffeine Blood. I put it in one of the Quantum Gathering videos too. So
I listened to the Whale Never Initiates this morning.
oh, I love that song. You know that one right there. I just did that one, and that was off of the reading we did yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when I told you I was going to take and run it through the Bible on there for two blades, I didn't stop to actually read what frickin' it said. I just went on with the rest of the show. And after the show was done, not only did it do what it did on your computer, but when I put what you put into my computer, it went off the chain. It said that it was freaking unique. It fits perfectly into the story, but it says it takes it a whole different direction.
How cool. That is so good. Yeah, it really got excited yesterday when I put your outline in.
So did my computer. It got really. It did the same thing. I posted it on the Quantum Gathering for you to what its response was. I had it write it out in regular paragraph form.
Huh.
And it's really good. Well, actually, if you want me to, I can read it to you guys right now.
This one here. Isn't this what we read? Is this a new thing? Oh man, is this new?
Okay, so this is from the two blade story that we did yesterday, and what GPT said when I put it in to the Bible. Okay. Now it says within the broader narrative structure of the two blades, the debate script you presented occupies an unusual but meaningful position. It does not function as a direct mythic narrative in the same way that the gospel material, the pig's storytelling, or the journeys of Juan Valdez and Two Blades themselves do. Instead, it operates in a reflective layer of the universe where characters are attempting to interpret fragments of myth that already exists. In other words, it behaves like a conversation occurring long after the original event has taken place, where interpreters, editors, and opportunists argue about what the old records truly mean. Now, this kind of material sits naturally beside archive commentaries or interpretive transcripts that attempt to reconcile stories that were never meant to be perfectly consistent. In the cosmology of the project, this makes the script feel like a recovered intellectual dispute rather than a primary piece of sacred narrative. The central concept discussed in the script is the well, and the way the characters struggle to define it mirrors the way wells function in the mythology surrounding Two Blades. In the deeper lore of the setting, A well is rarely just a hole in the ground. It is a symbolic structure that condenses ritual knowledge into a single image. Descent into a well is not merely physical movement downward, but a procedural act. Someone approaching such a structure must follow a sequence of preparation, understanding, and restraint. If those steps are ignored or misunderstood, the result is not mystical punishment, but structural failure. The world of the story does not usually judge people in a moral sense. Instead, it reveals consequences when someone interacts incorrectly with the system that already exists. Because of this, the argument between the characters about whether the well is symbolic, mechanical, or procedural actually echoes the way mythic mechanisms behave in the Two Blade universe. A well can appear symbolic to the observer, mechanical to the participant, and procedural to anyone who understands the rules governing it. Now, this goes on, so I'm not gonna, because we'll be sitting here for a long time. But that is the kind of stuff that it put out after I put your story in that you ran.
How cool. Good summary. Good summary, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it, Roger? What tool are you using?
GPT. But see, I've done a lot with mine. I've actually trained it myself, like actually just from playing around with Chat GPT. I've figured out how to get it to do things a certain way that most people don't take time to do. You know what I mean? So I'll put it that way, and I'm not breaking it. Just to let people know, I'm not breaking the chat box. I'm just using it the way it needs to be used. Like you have to know how to function with it. When I first started doing it, Bob Dub was always telling me you need to be able to give it instructions the proper way, because if you don't, you'll mess it up. So I just
mess up the edge. I've noticed this plenty of times with Gemini, especially when I point out the issues. It keeps on defaulting back to American English, and that really annoys me. So I keep on demanding that it comes out in British English, but it keeps on reverting back.
Well, it gets you more.
I love your style. I find it very erotic.
Well, I think with you though, like the hard part about you is like where you're at. Like you're in Devon, and I tried to use the accent on yesterday for Devon, and it kind of offended you because you made the comment, I'm not some common farmer, you know what I mean? It's like even there, I'm like, oh my gosh, I caught on to that when I was like, yeah, because I looked at the writing. It doesn't have the proper Devon accent.
Hang on, writing. A piece of writing have an accent.
Dude, it does have an accent. Like
a piece of writing doesn't have an accent.
Yes, it does.
An accent is a vocal thing. It's a audio thing.
My friend Rapid, okay, he's Scottish, and the dude keeps trying to freaking make like right directions on how to do things in his games because he does competitions, and he keeps writing this stuff out in Scottish, okay? And if you pay attention to the way Scottish people write, it is not good, dude, at all. I keep telling him, I'm like, you need to have somebody from England do it for you because they speak proper English.
Oh, this goes back to the video that Ria showed us early this year, where I sort of pointed out to her that we've got in Britain, there's something like 50 odd different accents. And she was doing, what was it? She was showing us a video of a lift puddling, somebody from Liverpool.
Oh yeah.
And and not being able to understand what that person was saying.
I find that actually happens a lot too when it comes to Liverpool. They've got a really strange way of talking.
Certainly.
I find that the audio is actually coming really good. I didn't have to switch out of the studio. I just had to do screen share, and I'm doing it from OBS to I'm recording from OBS to Jitsi. That's how I'm recording. But then I have Jitsi also screen sharing into the Rumble Studios, the new setup they got, and it seems to be working out. So it's good.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to end the stream, you know what I mean, and have to start it up again and all that stuff. If I can keep it to where it's one good solid stream, then that's great. And then later on, if I want to stream onto another channel when we start doing our.
I'm at a restaurant. I'm at a Japanese restaurant.
Oh, cool. See if we can get you focused in.
Sorry.
Oh, it's fine. We're used to it.
Look at all these Japanese beer.
Let me drop the background on that. That way we can get the solid.
Are they all screens? Yeah, they are. Or are they just photos?
They're just empty bottles for decoration.
Okay. Just how they, just a reflection, just sort of suggested screens.
These newspapers display. Well, there's photos on the wall.
Wow.
This
Japanese iced tea.
Gee.
Chefs making food. They have a sushi boat. You guys ever seen that?
Seen what, Tab?
A boat of sushi made into a boat. A boat that contains a bunch of sushi, different sushi.
No, I haven't.
You eat out of the boat.
Good heavens.
Okay. I think I've come across a cafe that has done that. I think in Bristol, maybe.
You're obviously confused and aroused.
I like this. I like that way of having the screens on a newspaper. That would be fantastic. Imagine doing that in an art gallery with all the Dude Where's My Wallets and having each TV playing a different Dude Where's My Wallet. Just looping. That would be such a cool installation art thing. Man,
Actually,
maybe I should do that.
I came up with an interesting idea myself, similar sort of tangent. Stick a screen behind me.
Ooh.
So I can have either static or image, or I can have whatever I want on it.
Absolutely. That would be really cool. What would you want on it?
I don't know. Stick little images of clocks. Stick clocks on that.
Oh, really?
Or something. Actually, back when I started streaming, I did have three clocks actually behind me. One with UTC, one with I think it was New York, so Eastern time, and one with Chinese time.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
Or Korea?
Oh yeah, I think I can remember, but yeah.
Huh. Yeah, that would be fun. That would be a real fun background.
It's just sorting that, trying to find a good stand and screen that's just relatively cheap and that would be wide enough.
Do you have good second-hand shops there in the UK?
Yeah. Charity shops and second-hand.
Yeah.
Personally, if I'm looking for electronics, I always look at the first thing I will go for. If I know what I'm looking for, it will be eBay's refurbished and new old stock stuff.
Wow. Maybe I should go around all the second-hand shops and buy up all the old TVs and then make an installation art thing. Man, I'm having so many ideas here. I don't know though, it's really expensive to book a showing in an art gallery, and maybe have to sell some things on Audible first for $1.90 before I could get the like $500 or $600 that you need for covering the insurance of an art gallery. But man, that would be such a fun idea. Imagine if I could get a whole lot of TVs that were broken and that like just glitched. You know how the screen goes.
Yeah.
That would be, and then just randomly glitching. Wow, that would be brilliant. I actually read something this morning of somebody who was it? It was Brad Pitt, I think, who went to this show where the show wasn't on a stage. For each act, you had to go into a different room and you had to move around this house or castle or whatever it is. And I can't even remember what show it was. It wasn't like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but it was something where it was a fully immersive audience experience, and you walked into the room and the cast was there doing its thing and you were part of them. And then when that scene was over, you went into another room and the cast started doing the next thing. I could do that with a whole lot of TVs and you'd be able to walk from episode to episode.
I think I've come across a similar concept. I've seen a similar sort of concept somewhere many years ago. But yeah, I can't remember. Yeah.
There's lots of interesting things you can do with installation art these days. When I was studying, there was a woman there who actually dropped out after a few months, but she was trying to do something with darkness. She had black curtains and she wanted people to go inside these black curtains where they couldn't see anything. And I don't know, I mean, that's possibly why she dropped out.
Drop your studies, forget all about school, dress up in tight leather, and live your life as a superhero.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would be interesting though if we got, if you got some link with the Church of the Subgenius. Roger, because that would really cross-pollinate, I think, with all the different work that we're doing.
I did mention, I did have a concern, not so much of a concern now, but I was a bit concerned because of the sort of political, sort of legal issues in this country. about criticism of religions.
Yeah, the world has moved on. It might not be the right thing for this day and age. It may be too sensitive at the moment too. But it would be interesting to get in touch with them just to see what they've got, you know, and see if there were any channels that could give us ideas, not necessarily going back into that era where you could make those sort of jokes, you know, 20, 30 years ago, you could make a different sort of joke. And these days you have to be very careful. Some things just aren't considered funny anymore.
Well, by some people.
By some people. But the thing
Right.
is, the type of art that we're doing, where we're sort of using cutting edge technology to make things that have never been made before, that's really the core of what we're looking to display, isn't it? We don't need to necessarily be associated with a different art movement, since we're kind of making our own art movement, if you like.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Makes me think of, was it Dave Allen? That Irish guy? The guy with half a finger? Do you remember when he used to put it in his whiskey glass and pretend that the whiskey had burnt his finger off? Remember that
Dave
guy?
Allen, was he the sort of Irish, the comedian that took a lot of, took the mick out of Catholics, mainly?
Took the mick out hardcore. Like in a way that people hadn't mocked the Pope before. The Pope had been sort of sacred. And he came along and showed him falling down the stairs and having a teapot under his hat, and he used to finish his show by saying, "May your gods go with you." And that was a great big ripple through the consensus reality of let's not mock the Catholic Church, because back in those days the Pope was considered to be God's servant, God's direct voice on earth. So whatever the Pope said was coming like from God's lips to his ears. So to mock him was directly mocking God himself.
Much
And
like
of course, you didn't want to do that, you might be struck down.
much like the monarch, British monarch, being the head of the Church of England, being the Anglican sort of voice of God, if you like.
Yes. Really, I didn't think that the Archbishop of Canterbury, the monarch of England.
The
not
monarch,
Archbishop.
yeah. The Archbishop is technically second in command of the, well, third, depends on how you look at it. But yeah, he's beholden to the monarch.
Yes. There's a huge, great split in the Anglican Church, isn't there, at the moment? Is there a lot Is there a lot happening in Britain about it? Is there a lot of discussion about it, or is it not really in the public view?
Depends on which could you look at. As far as the mainstream media is concerned, not overly, but there are historians and theologians that are quite critical.
Mm-hmm.
It's the entire road. Yeah. Sorry?
They're critical of the Archbishop herself, or of
Well,
the
the Archbishop herself, but also the entire sort of politically correct rogue sort of maneuvers. Yeah.
Tan, are you there? Tan?
In fact, I'm talking about town.
Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah, we were talking a couple of weeks ago in regards to the idea of a women archbishop. No, it's not orthodox. may not be, or it's not considered as orthodox.
Well, I think she's not just a woman, but she's a gay woman. So, like, there's you can't get further away from orthodox than that, really. But Tan, I was just going to ask you, is it still in the Catholic Church, is it still considered that the Pope is the mouthpiece of God? Or is that no longer doctrine?
Well, it's always been that the Pope is the vicar of Christ. So he is the servant of Christ. He's called the servant of servants. So all of his brother bishops and priests are servant of Christ, and he's just like the chief servant, I guess. But but so I mean, he's the Pope operates in two modes. There's the person is the man, is the Pope, which is a sinner just like the rest of us. And then there's when he speaks authoritatively on behalf of the church. Right? And so when that happens, he's guaranteed to be without error. So that is like it's called. When he's speaking from the chair, he's making declaration that is called ex cathedra. He's making formal declaration from the chair. He's guaranteed to be speaking on behalf of the Holy Spirit. Actually, the Holy Spirit is speaking through him in that instance. So that's that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see why.
So in the Catholic Church, Christ is the king, and the Pope is like the prime minister. He's the prime minister. So in the Anglican Church, the king is the monarch is the king, I guess. And there's no prime.
You're gonna let the poor lady talk. You keep trying to say something and then you start saying something again.
So yeah, sorry. Bob struck a chord. She struck a chord on. He stirred something in me.
The Holy Ghost.
Okay.
That's called the Holy Ghost.
Shut up. I'll shut up now, Bob. You should talk.
No, it's fascinating. It's interesting. I was just going to say, it from that point of view, you can understand why a comedian like Dave Allen was considered to be so very offensive and so really hitting below the belt. When you have that sort of reverence for a human being, it's hard to.
Last night I mentioned Monty Python's Life of Brian, and that was not there was a lot of criticism when that came out. No, that was released. It was 81, 79, whenever.
They came out with a lot of controversial stuff too. Like Monty Python was the first ones to actually start talking about gays and stuff in England, if you remember correctly. They had a lot of sketches that included homosexuality as a part of it. And
they talked about everything that was taboo. Anything that wasn't allowed, they picked it to be a topic. Which is quite clever, really, because people laugh to release stress. So you build up that sort of stress by being irreverent and by attacking things that are reverent. You're going to get people to laugh at you because they don't know what to say. They're like,
that's kind of why I wanted to do this, stir the the fallout, because with today and in today's climate, we need more people like Monty Python and freaking Dr. Demento and all of them, people who were actually able to say, look, man, don't take life so serious.
It's interesting how Python is dated, though. I was watching, it was a sketch done by John Cleese and Michael Palin. And they were doing it, I think, late 90s, early 2000s, something like this. And it was for a Monty Python revival where they were having some of the guys back. They were much, much older, of course. This is like, 30 years later. So they're doing a little sketch, much like all of their classic sketches. And at the end of the punchline is, after they have this big argument, the one invites the other to go back to his place. Kind of like they did a sketch like that with a policeman where a guy had his wallet stolen. They talked for like, well, I can't do anything. I'll come back to my place. All right. And that was like, really hilarious. But I remember watching the sketch and I'm waiting to get to the punchline. And the punchline is that they're going off together for a romantic occasion. And it really wasn't all that shocking, sort of thing. After 40 years, I'm like, where's the punchline? Okay, so it doesn't have the impact that it once did, because things change. Things get dated. But the fact that was a taboo was what made it funny. And of course, laughter is, as has been pointed out, an evolutionary stratagem. It's a non-lethal means of enforcing social compliance, so that when you see something that is not socially compliant, you don't have to my example is always, just because a guy is gathering sticks on the Sabbath doesn't mean you have to stone him to death. Instead, you laugh and you learn not to break that social taboo. But it got short-circuited into comedy, where we go to deliberately laugh. Kind of interesting.
I like
At least that's my theory.
See, that's the kind of thing I took hold on with Mark Watashik when we started doing all the stuff, getting it set up and everything, because he does shows with Jack, who does the paranormal investigation thing. And the whole merman idea that I came up with, that I told Mark Edworthy about, where with his Lord Edworthy character, where that started out, where his only desire is to be a merman. It came from Jack, because in my sketch, I've got it set up to where a little Japanese girl, it was a warm summer day, she freaking took her clothes off to go for a swim, and an octopus came along and ate her clothes, and then a shark ate the octopus, and she said, oh my God, what do I do now? And that's the punchline. Okay. But then it evolved. It has Mark Watashik has a guy who's his handler on the radio, who watches his content to make sure it abides by certain regulations and stuff, and he calls him his handler. And we've made a sketch out where he's a CIA handler and he stalks Jack because he's in love with Jack. And one day Jack went out to the water and jumped into the water, and he turned into a merman. So now you have Gary, who's freaking in love with Jack, following him around, who finds out that the guy he's in love with turned into a merman, and now he's trying to figure out how to catch him. So Mark Watashik is wanting to catch a merman too, because he's gay as well. Then we went a little bit farther, and in the songs I've added it into where freaking John Galt is gay, and freaking so is Bullhorn Barry. You know what I mean? So we've kind of evolved this whole punchline. You know what I mean? And
this is an orchestra of gayness.
Yeah. So. And I mean, there's ways you can turn it all into something hilarious, because I think, like you said, the whole atmosphere has changed, and everybody's accepting it, but there's also people who are very hostile towards it. You know what I mean? So I don't think it has to be like hostile. It is.
Every time you bring up that merman thing, I think of the Jimi Hendrix song.
Yeah.
It's a song about becoming a merman.
Now
Is
you're
it?
putting crazy
A
ideas.
merman I could turn to be. That's the name of it.
You know, it's now. Ever since you said it to me, I've been thinking about it too. So.
He's a Hendrixy kind of like musical style for it.
Mm-hmm. That'd be great. But
I just saw a clip of Hendrix playing acoustic too the other day. It's like, wow, what a guy.
I really do like this fairy tale daycare thing though. After doing the edits and stuff, and I really like that one. That's going to end up being good. Now next my next one is going to be 666 flags.
I was just thinking. I should have 666. I thought 666 words for me.
It's
Oh my goodness.
take your family to 666 flags, and it's going to have all these interesting rides.
Park manager Alistair Crowley. 666 flags. Oh, yeah.
That's why I enjoy hanging out with Mark Watashik, is because like we bounce ideas off of each other, and like he's obsessed with ska music and freaking hickerbilly. Okay, and like I'm amazed that the man is living in Texas. Okay, and I hope to God he didn't grow up in Texas, because if he did, I know he got beat up as a child. You know what I mean?
He might have done some of the beating too. You don't know. It's Texas.
Yeah.
But I've been going through. We've been mashing up some music, coming up with some stuff, and then that's when I started eventually saying, "Look, we need to do a freaking scripted show for this stuff, because it's really good content. It really is."
Epic behavior.
You know, so
Mhm.
I think I chased Tan and Bob off. I was talking
What
about.
When I got here, we're talking about papal infallibility, which I believe was a 19th century thing. And Tan would know better than I, but for some reason, the year 1839 sticks into my mind. It's an interesting doctrine. I know sometimes, especially when you've got like 2 or even 3 popes going at a time, you can kind of wonder about which one would be infallible. But I do remember reading something a long time ago, and I might have the details wrong, but I believe it was St. Robert Bellarmine who came up with a theological kind of a way to cope with this, which is basically even if the Pope is wrong about something, you should still, the fault would be basically you follow orders and you accept it, and if there's any wrong in it, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the authority that's issuing it, so that there's no sin involved because you acted in good faith.
Commanding officer.
Would that be accurate? I wonder.
Yes, that sounds about right.
No. Okay, so I was saying before about the 2 modes that the Pope operates, right? When he declares anything ex cathedra from the
Right.
chair,
Right.
that is definitive and infallible. And so I think throughout the church history, there's only been a few instances of that kind of declaration. One is the Immaculate Conception. What's another one? But when that happened, so when that's being declared, no other pope throughout history has ever reversed anything that's declared as infallible teaching, right? But that's the whole.
So it's only though when he's speaking ex cathedra, I never knew how to pronounce that.
Ex cathedra, yeah.
Only at those times, so not everything he says he's saying officially. I'm sitting in the chair, I'm in the cathedral, this is this. It doesn't cover every single statement he makes then. It's only those specific statements, and those are few and far between, is what you're saying.
Yeah, right.
And as I understood it, it was something with doctrine or morals. Not necessarily, he can't say, well, gravity will do this now, kind of deal. It's within the religious realm. Yeah.
Right. In matters of faith and moral, yes.
Okay.
I mean, when he does that, he doesn't declare stuff outside of those two boundaries. He's not ever going to say that gravity doesn't exist or anything like that, right?
Right.
And so there's that, but then there's the other thing that you mentioned about St. Robert Bellarmine mentoring. So there's the faithful and also members of the clergy has the duty to obey, right? To obey the hierarchy. Yeah. So if you are in part of the local church, you obey your local bishop, right? Whatever he says, you need to follow, so long as it doesn't go against your informed conscience, right? So right. So there's also the moral authority of your conscience.
So that's a safety valve there too, like a check and balance.
Yeah. So more so the clergy, they have the ability, they have the obligation to obey their bishop, and then they have to swear obedience to the Pope, right? That's part of their clergy. So so you cannot totally go as a member of the clergy. You cannot go publicly opposing anything that the Pope says. There's room for what do you call it?
Debate,
objection, but respectful objection. But you cannot just coldly go anti-Pope, all out against the Pope, and at that point
you're basically an Anglican.
Yeah. You can do that to a certain point, and there's people in the church who have been doing that, but at some point it gets out of hand, and then the Pope puts down his foot. Then he will declare you excommunicated, and then you're outside of the church, basically. And I think in the last couple of years, there's a couple of people who've done that, who've been excommunicated.
And I have heard that the church has always been much more open to debate as long as it was not public. That if you had a theological dispute, that you were perfectly free to air things and object to things, but if you go public with it and declare to the people, hey, this is wrong, is a lot different from talking to other members of the clergy and saying, I'm really disturbed by this kind of deal. So there was more, guys like Feudon or Bruno got more in trouble because of their public speaking more than, the private debates they might have with other clergy.
There's a charitable, this thing called a charitable correction, right? So it's paternal charitable correction. So you can do it privately, but then some people, when they have done that, and then the Pope would just ignore them.
Okay.
So they would and then he would go public, and that's okay. So like I think there are 4 or 5 of the cardinals in the United States put together what they call a dubia against Pope Francis when challenges some of the encyclicals that he put out. Right. And so one of them was Cardinal Burke. I forgot his first name, but I think he was from Chicago. and that was fine. The Pope ignored him, and then they just let it. I think that the matter, it was made public. It was made quite a stir at some point, and then it suddenly died down. And the
Right.
Pope never answered them. I don't think, but that was
Yeah.
that was okay. And then there's another instance of Archbishop Carlos Maria Vigano. Um, he publicly challenged the Pope, and he even went so far as to say the Pope is not legitimate.
Huh.
He's an illegitimate Pope.
Huh.
So
Well,
so he
they-
got excommunicated.
He
Okay.
disputed with the College of Cardinals. He said there was something wrong with the
Yeah.
election.
Yes,
Huh.
yeah, I did, yeah. So.
They've been having
so he-
elections for a couple, more than 1,000 years. I would figure they had their technique down pretty good by now. I don't see where they would screw up at this point in history.
Yeah.
I've seen
So
that.
yeah. So it's complicated matter. It's complex, not just. I mean, but Bellarmine says, yeah, you do have the duty to of obedience to the Pope when you sign up to be a clergy.
Right.
But you can object, but to a certain point. At the end, if you voice your objection, and the Pope, the Pope in the end, he has the final authority.
Right.
If the Pope doesn't accept your objections, then you have the duty to obey him,
I see.
with the exception of the moral conscience. Right.
Right. Right. Because of course the church is composed of fallible humans, and humans.
Yeah.
No, that's. I think that's always been
Exactly. Yep.
recognized too. By the church. I don't think the church has ever claimed that its clerics are all like moral supermen or anything like that.
No, I mean, on the contrary, it acknowledges that popes are sinful people. Pope Francis showed an example of that by you go through regular confessions. So the video of him celebrating mass before at the Vatican, and before he starts celebrating mass, he goes to confession.
Right. Yeah.
Uses the force
That's good.
for knowledge and defense.
I was just thinking of the case of Calvin Robertson, but this is not relevant because Calvin Robertson is a defunct Anglican priest, isn't he?
Ah.
Calvin Robertson, being, if I remember rightly, just got to check this. Yeah, he was ordained in 24, 25, and then he became political, or he was always political anyway, and then he was defrocked by the Church of England, and then moved to America, and he's acting as a priest he's a priest in the US, and still relatively political.
Isn't the? I mean, obviously, the Church of England has a kind of default political position of royalist, doesn't it? I mean, it's always been a political instrument right from the start. We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
That was the means by which society at that time, religion, government, society, it was all seen as one thing. And I read a lot of Elizabethan stuff, and she always used her position as head of the church to dictate what sermons would be. We're going to have a war with Spain soon, so every sermon for a month would be like how evil the Spanish are, and how we're going to, so it was always. So it would probably be, they would object to him being any kind of politics aside from, I mean, you can't get more establishment than a church that's headed by the head of state. I mean, that's pretty much integrated into the national establishment, or at least in theory.
But technically, isn't the Pope the head of state? He's the head of state of the
The Pope is
Vatican,
only the
which
head of
is-
state of the Vatican.
Yeah, but
I
the
mean, he's
Vatican
not
is
the head of.
recognized as by the UN as a country, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it is.
he's
Yeah,
the
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a country, yeah.
it is. Yeah,
I mean, the big
he
thing
is the head of state. Yeah, yeah.
No, they have diplomatic recognition. He used to have a lot more land. They had the Papal States in central Italy, and as a matter of fact, it was Benito Mussolini that finally made a concordat with the Pope. The Pope was like turned his back on Italy because when they unified Italy, they took all the Papal States, and he was like, "Well, screw you," and he just basically gave them the whole country the cold shoulder. And it was, finally they recognized, all right, you're a sovereign here. You had back then I think it was the Palatinate or Palatine Guard along with the Swiss Guard. And, and to this day, but yeah, definitely it's a sovereign territory. In theory, you could expand the Papal States again. But, I think the papacy came out of that medieval period where there was a lot of, you had the Guelphs and the Ghibellines. You had the imperial party of the Holy Roman Empire, and the Holy Roman Emperor who was crowned by the Pope and who, claimed to exert authority over him. And then you had the emperors who very often had the military might to decide who was going to be the next Pope. So there was always a political aspect of things back then that I think we find a little alien. We think of prelates and priests as being, wholly divorced from secular concerns, but for most of European medieval history, the church was very often the majority landholder in a country. It was not unusual for bishops and cardinals to be appointed to important parts. The Spanish court included a cardinal infante. This guy was a royal prince and operated as such, but he was also a cardinal priest. And of course, Cardinal Richelieu comes to mind immediately as a senior statesman. Henry VIII surrounded himself with churchmen. So, and of course, there was that wonderful thing where churchmen are not allowed to shed blood. So these warlike bishops would go into battle with maces so that they would not shed blood. And instead of having an edged weapon, they would just have a club. So, and this goes back to like all through human history. Priesthoods have always been, you look back at the classical world, where being a priest of the pagan gods was very often a part-time position. So the idea of a priesthood being completely integrated into like all aspects of life, including military and governmental ones, was pretty normal, I think, for most of history. So, but for us, it's kind of odd to think of the Pope as also being the Dalai Lama was also a theocrat, if you like, a sovereign of a nation. And we think of him as this wonderful little old man teaching Vajrayana Buddhism, and he is. But when you read about the rule of the lamas in Tibet, again, that's that whole thing. It was like if you could get a time machine and show the Buddha, you see that guy with 100-man bodyguards with fixed bayonets? That's a Buddhist bhikkhu. And I'm like, what? So, yeah. Sorry, that's my rant.
From the Force.
Force.
I don't know how it is in the Church of England, but the Catholic Church, the laws of the Catholic Church forbid any member of the clergy to participate in political to run for political office, right? And they're also not allowed to support any specific political party.
That's probably very wise these days.
So, the Church of England has got seats on the House of Lords. I think they act as technically act as
Lord's temporal and Lord's spiritual, right?
Lord
there's
Chancellor?
a really interesting sort of movement or I don't know what you call it, sort of group of people who talk about, coming out of Canada actually, I think, Tan, who talk about the priesthood not being something done by leaders. The priesthood should be something that's done by people. And their definition of a priest is somebody who shares something with somebody else that they didn't know before. So, for instance, a mom teaches her child, her daughter, the magic of how to make a cake, how to combine the ingredients and put them in an oven and make them into a different thing, to transmute these substances into a new substance. And they talk about this, there being no separation between the secular and the spiritual world, and that a priest, an actual person who is a priest, not somebody who's been said that they were a priest, but a person who lives in a priestly way, is the sort of person who helps other people to understand or to deal with or to integrate the issues around the problems and the stresses that we have in life, which I think is a very fascinating thing, especially coming in sort of in the wake of the collapse of organized church post-COVID, when they went to great lengths to ban church services, because apparently you could get really sick in a church, but you couldn't get sick in a restaurant.
Or Walmart. Yeah.
But in a church, you'd get really ill. So post-COVID and post-lockdown, there's been a massive realignment among the ordinary people about how they express their spirituality, which I think is a fascinating development, because, I'm really interested in anarchy and in people taking personal responsibility and not expecting the state to do things for them, but actually stepping up and living their own lives according to this sort of sense of rightness that we seem to have been born with. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there, because I think that it's very interesting for people to be losing their, I was going to say faith, but then losing their religion seemed like a good line. Losing their faith in the leadership of the church.
Well, it's also losing the structure. And, it's interesting what you're saying, because what you're describing is basically different functions that a priest might fulfill, not being restricted to a priesthood as such. At the same time, when we expand these terms, we can be in danger of losing nuance. And I'm thinking from a Buddhist perspective, there's a movement in some neo-Western Buddhists and so forth to redefine Sangha. The Sangha are basically the monks, the people that take all the vows to be ascetics and all that, to expand it to mean anyone that calls themselves a Buddhist. And there are arguments about that, and actually the word Sangha itself in Pali basically means a group, but traditionally in Buddhism that you can qualify it by saying the monastic Sangha. And then there's the so-called noble Sangha, which are members of the not just the monastic Sangha, but anyone who's a Buddhist who attains to what they call arhantship, basically wakes up and turns off the video game. So, I think it's, in one sense, it is that anarchistic democratization. It's a natural outgrowth of people being deprived of the structure of a church, so that they are finding in their day-to-day lives some of these same spiritual experiences, and realizing that we serve each other in many ways that would be covered by a dedicated priest or minister or whatnot. At the same time, there's something to be said for the, shall we say, technician of the sacred, someone who feels they have a vocation. And you yourself, Bob, at one time were considering the priesthood in the Anglican Church, as I recall, and even studied toward that end. So, I think there are people that have a vocation to spend 24/7 working as a priest. And I'm not saying that other people can't fulfill those functions, but when you expand that term, I think we might be in danger of losing some nuance, if you know what I mean. Just my 2 cents.
Terms are interesting, because I know a lot of people who won't say the word God.